Welcome to Holistic Health Heroes, here to help you become your own health advocate and introduce you to some heroes in the holistic health arena. Let's get started. Hi, Lance.
Hey, Kiri.
Nice to see you today.
You too.
I want to introduce you just briefly because there's a lot to say and you can tell us your story. But let me just say that Lance Schuttler is owner and CEO of Ascent Nutrition. He studied health science at the University of Iowa. Shout out to Iowa since we're both from Iowa. And he worked in the nutraceutical industry for many years. He has a great passion for research, brain health, neurogenesis, nutrition, and biohacking. Welcome, Lance.
Thanks for having me, Kiri.
I'm so excited that we're going to have this conversation. You know, it just happened that we ran into each other at a conference and, well, actually mutually introduced, but kismet, right? I feel like it's like fate. Once we had a talk and we got to know each other a little bit, we feel like we're right in the same zone. And so I love meeting people that I'm aligned with. And so I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks. Same here.
Now, in reviewing your website and some of the great videos that you've produced, I noticed a phrase that really resonated with me. And maybe you could tell us about it. So what is your personal story about what you dubbed the unintelligent medical system?
So it's especially important these days, you know, because we're just in early or mid-January of 2025 right now, and there's a lot of changes happening in the world. And a lot of that is stemming around the medical system and what's been going on for decades, really, but it's just coming to light, especially over the past couple of years, because of people's experiences, people diving deeper into research, people learning the truth, everything that's been done to try to suppress what's actually true has only backfired and only woken more people up. So it's really exciting. How I kind of got into this was just being active when I was young. So it kind of really began just me playing sports and having an interest in a lot of different things about life in general. I grew up in small town Iowa, and you know, it was a good life. I had a great childhood growing up.
Did you live on a farm too?
No, but okay. I spent a lot of time out on a couple different farms nearby.
It's a requirement if you're from Iowa.
Absolutely. Lots of bonfires, BB guns, fireworks, all the good stuff.
Good.
And just being active, I was always kind of just into health in that way, but not really learning too much about it in high school. Just more focused on playing poker at the time, sports, school, life. Yeah. And then when I got to college, I started studying health science, and, you know, I knew when I got to college, I needed to actually focus on something, like what am I going to do with my life?
Right.
So I kind of narrowed it down to a couple things of either pre-physical therapy or pre-chiropractic, and because I knew that it was something to do with health and wellness.
Interesting. So when we talked before, I thought you were sort of in the traditional route, but no, from the very beginning, you were already on to, you know, physical therapy, the whole body, the sort of holistic mindset, a little bit chiropractic.
Yep. And I remember kind of like my first taste of pushback against, I call it real medicine, but, you know, some people might call it alternative medicine. But these days, again, things are changing so fast that we know what real medicine is, especially now, not any of the propaganda. But that's a side story.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I had a friend, I was telling him, I'm looking at maybe doing pre-chiropractic or pre-physical therapy, not really sure. And the guy, he was very smart, very intelligent, very school smart. And him and another friend were pushing back on the chiropractic. Like, you actually believe in that? Like, that's pseudoscience. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, this is very basic stuff. And they had been, you know, programmed to believe certain things that really aren't true, as we know now. And it just sort of like led me down the path of seeing, wow, okay, what we view as just common sense, like, of course chiropractic works, because if you're adjusting the nerves, you're adjusting the body in different ways, there is going to be a physiological response. Right. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. The body is going to respond. Mm-hmm. It may take time. Some people may not get help from it, but it does work and it does happen. So I'm not here to push chiropractic, but just the story of people know that there's real solutions out there.
You know, it's difficult. I mean, I'm on board with that, and but I can't help but think about this episode of Joe Rogan I saw a while back, where he was really down on chiropractics, and he was saying, you know, that it was bogus and et cetera, you know, all this stuff. And I thought, oh, that's so unfortunate, because, you know, he's such a big audience, and he had a bad experience. You know, they're just like I always say when I hear that in my life, there's good doctors that are great at their craft, and there's not so great ones. You know, there's great dentists, there's not so great. You know, there's ethical and good people in every profession. You can't put down the whole, like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, basically, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he'll come around, we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. So that sort of just kind of began things, and I didn't really care what he thought. I was a little bothered by it at the time, because I had, you know, great success with chiropractic, and I believed in it. I knew that it was helping me, but it did help me to start to see that, okay, not everyone's going to be on the same page with everything, and that's completely fine. We're all here to learn and grow and experience life. So several months later, my father, he is just not doing well mentally. You know, it was a dark, cold winter in Iowa, like unusually, and he just was not feeling well, very sad, felt depressed, and so he went to his medical doctor and, you know, asked for help, was put on a pharmaceutical as an antidepressant, and started taking it, was switched a couple different times over a period of like 5-6 months, something like that.
Which is pretty rapid.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. There was several of them, and it was, I think, a little too quick, but that's, you know, besides the point. Where it led was, you know, the last few weeks of his life, we could see there was a definite change in him. Like, he was there mentally, but he was checked out. Not that he wanted to die, but that you could see it in his eyes that those pharmaceuticals glazed him over.
Just a numbing.
Like, he was looking at us and talking, but he wasn't there.
Right.
It was very strange, especially, you know, hindsight, looking back, we could connect all the different little weird anomalies. So he ended up taking his life one day out of nowhere.
Wow.
And that was, you know, my foray into this world.
That's pretty big. Yeah. That's a huge, huge trauma. I mean, I think that word gets so overused today in many ways, but when someone takes such a drastic measure, a final measure, what happened after that for you and your family? I mean, emotionally, you know, how did you cope at that point?
Being with friends, and had a great friend network, great family. For me, I knew that I needed to become the man of the house, even though I was not living in the house at the time. I was in my freshman year of college. I lived close by, so I was there often enough. My brother was a junior in high school. My mom was there working full time. And, you know, I was obviously hurt and suffering and pain, but I knew that their experience was way different than mine. They had seen him that day, just a few hours before it. And it was something that I just knew that I needed to man up and, you know, actually grow up at that time. Like, I had no choice, really. Yeah. And it didn't happen right away, but I started questioning a lot of things, obviously, and just processing all of that stuff. And it took several months, but started to see, like, okay, wow, this healthcare system's really messed up, because why would a medication that's supposed to help someone to feel happier and better and lift someone out of depression, why would that do the opposite and make them want to take their own life?
Right.
We know there's, like, those are the side effects, but that's not medicine, and that's very unintelligent. And that's where that comment stemmed from, and a lot of other things too, because we've had this system where, and it's all been, you know, very, very well designed, as you know, incentivizations for people staying in certain lanes in medicine, incentivizations for people taking certain actions, not stepping outside of the norm. If you do, you're completely ostracized and called a quack.
Right.
You'll lose your license, all sorts of things that they want to do to people. But that system based on fear and based on really low level intelligence, like we're looking at very basic things.
Yeah, this is basically promoting non-critical thinking.
Yeah, yeah. So that's, kind of where that statement came from.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at a system that's supposed to help people be happier and healthier, yet we know, especially today, if you want to be happier and healthier, the worst place to go is to a hospital.
Yeah.
These days.
Yeah.
And especially over the past couple of years, it's a whole other thing. But, when they were starting to push all the different treatments, those were only making people sick and actually killing people.
Yeah, the suppression of the different, what's the word? It's escaping me now. The therapies, I guess. The suppression of the things that could actually help people, and then turning those things into being vilified. Why? You have to ask the question, why is that happening? Who can benefit from this? And I believe there's people that will probably listen to this and think, what are you guys talking about? What do you mean about that?
Right. And, it's everyone's choice to believe what we want. Again, we're all on our own path, and that's all good in all the ways. And if someone's in medicine or in healthcare in any regard, or you have responsibility over someone's life or health, then it is, especially today, critical that that person becomes really informed on what's actually going on. And we know we're not going to hear this from the legacy media. And I call them the legacy media, and so do many, many others now, because they are the past. They are the old. We can't stay up to date fast enough with what the mainstream puts out.
Right.
The legacy media. It's always been just propaganda, mockingbird media, talking points. You hear the journalists saying the same things, literally,
word for word.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Safe and effective, all that crap. It's all lies.
Yeah.
And, it's just something that I bring this energy in these kinds of conversations because it really is a life and death situation.
That's
if
right.
You've seen someone physically harmed and to the point where they take their own life, of course you're going to be a little activated and a little charged, bringing energy to try to help solve what's going on. So that's where I've drawn a lot of my energy from. I'm a passionate person in general. I love life. I love, learning things and doing things and trying to change things for the better. And as I got into all this, it just, lit my fire even more, because I knew, wow, this isn't just accidents that are happening or oversight or people making mistakes. No, this is very well coordinated, and it goes extremely deep. And, these days now, like, if you don't believe that, that's on you, because everyone in the world now has seen what the agenda is. And if you don't see it, that's fine, but it's very broad daylight for most of the population. And most people have woken up to the fact that the systems, especially here in the US, like, we know very clearly the government as a whole, it's not that every single person is in on it, and
Right.
not every single person in healthcare, not every doctor is in on it.
Correct.
We know that's not true. Most people want to help. Most people are good people, but the system's been set up to incentivize really, like, behavior and practices that harm people.
Yeah. I mean, the first rule of medicine, first do no harm. We're not following that. And it makes me think of that Casey and Callie Means podcast they had about the one-liner that really took away for me was, the system is not broken. And I thought, wait a minute, I've been saying the system's broken. What are they about to say? The system's not broken, it's rigged. And that kind of really drives it home of what we're talking about. So when you have a health, to bring it back to people who might be interested in health and holistic, ways of being healthy, it's that we all have to be our own health advocate. And when you get sick and when you get knocked down and when you don't feel well, it's not the easiest thing to do, which is why it's so important to seek out the information where you can find the truth, because it's not going to be served to you on a platter.
No, exactly. Like, we're not going to hear it from, at least today, but hopefully soon. And I do believe very soon we will be seeing that. We will be seeing accountability. We'll be seeing completely a reversal in a lot of these agencies that have been taken over, all of this stuff, and it's going to help the population. But yeah, exactly. It's not broken. They've known exactly what they're doing to a T. They haven't missed a thing. But the good news is that that's collapsed. It's dissolving right now. And the new systems are being born. They're already here, and they're just proliferating even more. Like, think about just in the past 2 years, how many more people are aware of diet, nutrition, lifestyle, mindset, exercise, getting outside, not being stuck in the home, how important connection is, talking with people.
So
all
important.
of those different things, that's all health.
Yeah, I think my lesson, especially in the community piece and knowing, and I think I talked to you about this when we first met too, is that I realized within myself, it's like I'm doing all the right things, or the things that, to my best of my ability, with nutrition and sleep, and trying to really be healthy and live a great health conscious life. But one thing where I thought I could just be a little too independent was with community, or lack thereof. And now I realize, wait a minute, just because you want to be independent and do all this on your own doesn't mean you don't need other people. We're designed to need that that sense of community. So I'm excited about building that through this podcast, so we can draw together more like minds and, reverberate this message throughout. So, so back to, your story in what happened there, and what drove you to form Ascent Nutrition, your company now, because, these themes that we're talking about are they're interwoven in your mission. You've got a pretty big mission for this company. So maybe you could speak a little bit about, what is your overall mission with Ascent Nutrition?
Simply to relieve suffering. That's the core of it. A little bit more is really just to help people be happier and healthier, help people to see things in new light, raise awareness on health and wellness and life in general, because our whole life is our health. There's a doctor out there, Dr. Cassie Huckabee, I believe is her name. She's said this many times, and this is her whole ethos, and I really, really resonate with it, which is your life is your medicine. Mm-hmm. So she's very much into all the holistic stuff and looking at it from a well-rounded perspective, diet, nutrition, all that stuff, but also goes way more beyond that.
I like
if
that.
You've got something going on mentally or emotionally, that has to get worked out internally. There's not going to be a supplement or a pill,
right,
pharmaceutical or natural, that's going to, treat that from the core. There might be beneficial help in some ways on a physical level, but emotionally, it's got to be addressed in that. But the point being, our whole life is is the medicine. Your life is your medicine, and it's how are you organizing your whole life? Because it is the whole picture.
Yeah.
What you said, how you're sleeping, eating, waking up,
working with people. Yeah.
Exercise, sunlight.
Yeah. Being on your purpose. That's part of it too. Your life is your medicine. I like that. That's really great. Speaking of medicine, one of the products that you gave me to sample, and I haven't tried it yet, but it made me have to do a little bit of research, because I forgot what DHA is all about. So I had to dig into DHA, and because I was confusing it with DHEA, totally different thing, right? So could you tell us a little bit about what is the importance of DHA?
Yes. So docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, that's an omega-3 fatty acid. So we've heard a lot about omega-3s from fish oils or fish, and how important they are, especially for the brain, cardiovascular health, just health in general, lowering inflammation. That's like what people topically know about omega-3s. DHA is one of those omega-3s, and these are called essential fatty acids, meaning we have to get them in the diet. The body can't produce them. So typically we get them from fish or seafood. They are found in nuts and seeds, but very, very small amounts, not therapeutic amounts. So to actually get enough, we need to consume where that's coming from. So if you look at DHA, how it's actually formed is from photosynthesis, sunlight going down at the ocean, the phytoplankton, the algae grow these nutrients. And so it's the algae that's got the omega-3s and all sorts of other omegas and different nutrients depending on the species of the plankton or the algae. So DHA, typically then the fish will come along and eat the algae, and then we as humans will take the fish or the fish oil and we get those omega-3s. And in general, the population is severely deficient in omega-3s. So the average American, and this is basically the rest of the world outside of a few places, the average percentage of what we call the red blood cell index. So what we call the omega-3 index percentage, that is the level of omega-3s that are saturated in the blood, in the red blood cells. And we Americans and the rest of the world are basically lower than 4%, where ideal is between 8 to 12%. So we're severely deficient. So consuming more omega-3s is part of that solution to get that level up. And by the way, this is all studies on PubMed. Omega-3s is either the most or one of the most studied nutrients. Creatine is, I think, the most. But omega-3s have been studied, in this, with standard Western, recent model of science over the past 60 years, tens of thousands of times. You can find so many studies on PubMed. So this is why even if you go to a medical doctor, I'll answer the question.
Sure.
But if you go to a medical doctor, most of them, even the ones that are heavily tied into the system, in general, they're at least aware of, oh yeah, you can take your fish oil. Go ahead, because like omega-3s, they're good, they're safe, they've been studied forever.
Right.
We know they help. So yeah, go ahead and take them. Most medical doctors even have that, like base knowledge.
True, yeah.
So, and that's because of the amount of studies that are out there on omega-3s.
Fish oils are one of those things where you want to make sure you're getting quality sourcing, right? And so I know that you, with the algae component of it, Craig, you'll see fish oils in a lot of different ways, but with the algae component, is that because it's, it's a quality thing that you went that direction, or, is there more to say about the algae being the source of the DHA you're using? Yeah.
So what we've done then is, instead of going to the fish oils, we water extract from algae. So we just go to the source. The fish is the middleman. Right. We cut out the middleman, go to the source. That's algae.
I like that.
And how we differentiate even from other algae oil companies is we're water extracting these, super clean water, extracting it and holding it in, like we've got a flavored one that's organic cold pressed lemon peel oil. And so that, covers the algae taste and it gives you these omegas. So,
sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of people who take fish oil are having that like repeat happen to them. And they don't like the way it tastes. But I would imagine that this is a liquid tincture, so you're not having that problem.
Yeah.
And you're getting it straight from the source. You're cutting out the middleman.
Yeah.
Sounds really great. Yeah.
And we also don't put seed oils in it. We openly show the COA, which is the certificate of analysis. We show the exact amounts of DHA, EPA, and 22 other fatty acids. We're openly showing that because we want people to research and do their own research and come to their own conclusions, which is we have the cleanest omega-3 product on the market today.
Nice.
If someone comes along and produces something better, I'll definitely walk that statement back. But we created this so that this statement could be made authentically and not just as a marketing statement, not just as, to say it. It's real. And like we're proud, and I'm proud to say that because no one else can.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we encourage people, again, go do your own research, because that's how I got into all of this. Researching meticulously, not taking,
surface level word for it. Yeah. In my research, Lance, on this, I had to remind myself, like I said, that some of the benefits of DHA. So I'm just going to read off: brain health, eye health, heart health, mood and mental health, pregnancy and infant development, anti-inflammatory effects. Like this seems like a miracle thing, right? What can you say about any of those benefits? Like, what are the benefits that you really think that this addresses?
Yep, definitely. So, well, all of that, and the reason, and I'll go into all those different things too. The reason is because it's a fundamental nutrient that the body needs. So again, it's essential. We have to get in the diet. But along those lines, what that further means is that DHA actually incorporates into the neurons and into the cellular membrane of cells. And so it's a physical building block of neurons, of, all these different cells in the body. And so when we consume omega-3s, it actually helps to build new neurons, strengthen the connection between damaged neurons, and other things that I'll get into. But the point on brain health and neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, IQ, all these different things around the brain and nervous system, omega-3s absolutely help, because it's literally a building block of these neurons. So
our brain is made up of so much fat. It needs fat. It needs cholesterol. I think this would be supportive of all of those things.
Yes, exactly. So when people take it, you do notice greater cognitive health benefits. You can be more articulate.
Ooh, I should have taken some today.
I did take some beforehand as well. And, and that's the thing. I believe in all these things. I'm not just, doing this just to do it.
It's not just a company. This is a part of a life mission. It's part of a purpose. You can tell.
Yeah, definitely. And so a couple different mechanisms that's really interesting on the DHA. It'll upregulate the production of a couple growth factors called nerve growth factor, NGF, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, and then also synaptamide. And these are compounds that just help the brain to create new neurons, repair damaged neurons, strengthen the connection between them, and really just help the brain be more efficient.
Interesting. Neurogenesis, like just the what am I trying to say? I should have taken it. No, but like you're obviously you're just covered that, the brain connection, the cognitive abilities. I wonder, and also mood was on that list. So I know we don't say in the nutrition supplement world, this is for that or to cure this or that, but it supports our body's natural function. So you mentioned the brain health aspect of it. Is it for mood too? Is it for people who might have struggles, like with mood, depression?
Definitely. And again, just people can go to PubMed, type it in. You can easily find this. Omega-3 is well known as a treatment for depression, for anxiety, for ADD, ADHD,
well, there you go.
Schizophrenia, bipolar, Alzheimer's. And again, it's not just going to be you take the omega-3s and you're cured and treated and everything's good. No, it's a lifestyle switch. Why did this happen? Why did this come on to begin with? Address those things, address the life holistically, add nutrients in that we know are going to help, and then they do help.
That's so true. And it resonates a lot with me in just the conversations I have in my everyday life where someone might come to me with a problem because they know I'm into this zone, right? So, hey, this is happening to me. What do you think? And it's always like, well, let's have a conversation. How are you thinking about, it's your thinking first. It's like, how deep do you want to go? Are you willing, if you've got a health problem that's coming up, are you willing to change your thinking about it first? And you might have someone who's sort of tiptoeing with curiosity. I think that's great. That's a gift, that they're at least open and questioning and asking questions. That's so valuable. You start there. When it goes deeper into the lifestyle things, I feel some have a lot of resistance. Do you get that in conversations you have, the resistance of changing your thinking around this stuff?
Definitely. But I honestly don't really have those conversations anymore. Not out of anything towards anyone, just I've learned, and I know you've learned the same thing, and we all do in our own ways. You can't force information on people that they're not ready for, but definitely when people are asking, I'll share as far as they want to take things. But it's really just like, where are they at? What do I know? What's the information they're seeking? How can I help? But again, I've just sort of stopped pushing things, and not that I was ever pushing things on people, because I learned very quickly back,
right,
many years ago, oh wow, you can't even say basic stuff, and people are like,
That goes against what I believe.
It's going to hurt me. The doctor said that this will hurt me. No, your doctor's been brainwashed, unfortunately. And that's the truth, you know, and like, I'm not putting down medical doctors, all those different things. But we need to look, especially today, what is a doctor? Like, really, what is a doctor?
Right. Good question.
Is it someone who's just pushing drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, who's sitting with you for 10 minutes, listen to you talk, and then, here, go take this?
Right.
That's not doctoring. That's not medicine. That's not actually going to be helpful.
Right.
To me, a doctor is someone who's helping, whether they've got a license or not. That we're in times now where people are seeing through all these different facades of, you got this license or you got this piece of paper, you got all this.
Times they are a changing.
Yeah, and it's so necessary because truth doesn't care what a piece of paper says.
Right. It's broken. It's broken and rigged. We have to remember that as a mantra here. It's broken and rigged. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean anything bad against the people. Like, this is a message that I like to communicate too, because I've in my past had people say, oh, you hate doctors. And it's like, no, back up, hold on, pump the brakes there, buddy. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you zoom out and you look at what's happening, the model here, pharmaceutical reps are paying for the conferences. Coca-Cola is sponsoring the conferences. You know, the reps are coming in and basically bribing the doctors with bagels and chocolate or whatever, trips to Maui, I don't know, and to sell their pill for the ill. And like you said, when you're in that 10-minute appointment, they're categorizing you through the codes and saying which pill applies here. Now, is that really going to help you? Is that really going to help people? There's many, many stories now of how it hasn't been working. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a system that's been intentionally dumbed down to take people who are, you know, what society would call intelligent and bright and sharp, and many of them are. Like, I think we're all geniuses, honestly. Like, every human, Einstein said it. We're all geniuses. It just depends on our upbringing, the education around us, what we've been taught, how we facilitate our creativity and growth and learning and exploration and all of that. But with that, you know, the system, it really has been dumbed down to keep people
at a certain level.
Yeah, and the arrogance of some of these professionals, quote unquote, it will be their own downfall, and they've created it. I mean, a lot of doctors are going to lose their license here coming up very soon because of all the nonsense and all of the crimes against humanity that they participated in. Not all of them, as we know. Yeah. Many of them did, and there's no one coming to save them because they hurt people, they hurt families, mothers, children,
destroyed
fathers,
lives,
grandparents, all the different things that were just so anti-life and so insane that were taking place in the hospitals and all that.
That makes me think of a time that we're not too far out of, just a few years now. And some of the products, as I was looking through, like one of your products is, has pine needles. What's it called? Pine needle extract. And I noticed that started coming up a few years ago, and thought, that sparked my curiosity as to the history of pine needles and how the indigenous people were using pine needles, how we've all just recently been through a huge thing with respiratory health. So could you speak to a little bit about how that product came, to fruition, what made you just, follow that path, and then the health benefits of pine needles?
Yeah. So where it kind of began was actually where the company began, which is the first product we sold was a pine pollen tincture. So it's different than pine needles, but that kind of got the ball rolling in all the different ways. And then shortly after that, a year and a half later or so, the whole COVID situation happened, and started being told, all these different things, and started seeing that certain things were being forced on people. And many people happily did it as well and brainwashed other people into doing it. Use fear, all those different things. So I like me personally, I don't care what someone did or didn't do with that. It's
Right.
not my business. It's not anyone's business.
Exactly.
It's only that person's business. But what we saw was, this is definitely going to be pushed on us big time, and it was. And so we knew that pine needle's been used by the indigenous for so long, vitamin C, shikimic acid, and I'll talk about that, all sorts of different nutrients in there and compounds that are beneficial. But one of the big ones is shikimic acid. So shikimic acid, you look this up, that's what Tamiflu is.
That's right. Oh yeah, Tamiflu, right? The very popular flu medicine.
Yes. So it's antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. It's antithrombogenic and antiplatelet. And so those last two, what that means is it helps blood to flow better, and it helps to unstick blood.
There you go.
And we know that some of these forced injections have been clotting people. And so we knew that we had to get antidotes out there and solutions out there that could help people.
So yeah, and if you think about it, keeping your blood flowing is a good thing for everyone, no matter what the age or affliction, but especially in a conversation around this.
Yeah, definitely. And so that was the big piece to it. But another piece to this is shikimic acid. So there's something called the shikimic acid pathway or shikimate pathway.
That's right. I was going to say, this sounds very familiar, shikimate pathway.
Yes, and this is a 7-step process crucial to life. And this is for all the different bacteria in the soil, all the different microorganisms in the soil. And so we humans are indirectly affected by shikimic acid and directly.
Because what I just learned in looking this up last night a little bit was that we don't have a shikimate pathway, right? Like humans don't have that. We get it from the plants or the things we have in our diet.
Yes, exactly. And so we go to Roundup, glyphosate, Bayer, Monsanto. Glyphosate it targets this, I think it's the 5th step in that process, and it stops shikimic acid from being formed. And so all these microbacteria, all these different organisms in the soil and just around us, they don't have that. And so we are mostly microorganisms. We're more microorganisms and beneficial bacteria or bacteria in general than we are human. So this is sort of why when glyphosate was introduced, it started affecting people's guts. And so we've had gut dysbiosis, we've had celiac, we've had people who are gluten intolerant now, all sorts of things stemming from this shikimic acid pathway, this shikimate pathway, and the lack of the shikimic acid. And so when we humans are taking in beneficial bacteria and like food, which should have it from the soil, good soil, we're lacking this. And so those microorganisms can't do what they need to do. And so this is how we get gut dysbiosis and all sorts of gut and then brain issues, and the whole body starts
breaking down. Yeah. Domino.
So glyphosate, it targets that, and it also targets the P53 gene. Okay, and P53 gene, it's the most studied gene in the human genome. You can find this all on PubMed, 70,000 plus different studies on it. They know very much about it. And how coincidental is it that glyphosate targets that specific gene, and others too, but specifically P53?
What is that gene for?
It's the body's best defense against cancer. So it helps.
Look at that.
It's an immune protective gene, and it helps to basically ensure that cancer cells don't start to proliferate and grow and become tumors. So this is why cancer has been on the rise so much, and why even people have won lawsuits against Bayer, Monsanto, because of the glyphosate issue.
Wow.
We know that this is a huge player in cancer. And actually, I just saw this coming from a medical doctor in Iowa a couple days ago. He's talking about, I think Iowa has the most or the second most rise in cancer over the past, 20 years or something like that. It's like the most amount of cancer in the United States, Iowa. Well,
Where's the corporation located?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing.
And like we're spraying all these crops, and
Runoff,
some people
water
know.
supply. Yeah.
Exactly. Some people know, but a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't want to know, especially the farmers. And you can understand it, because like you don't want your livelihood, your whole family generational farm being put at stake because you need to change practices.
Right. You can imagine the losses that first have to occur in order to get anywhere, which is possible, but it's a hard road. It's, again, goes back to that changing your thinking from the ground up. I mean, literally have to flip the whole script on what you thought was the way of doing things. If you're, like you say, a farmer or something. I have to share with the audience a little bit when you were talking, brought up Bayer. Recently I did a Google search. I was looking for something. I don't know what it was exactly, but I found Bayer's website by whatever I was looking for. And it was like a bunch of products listed, but the products that they were listing were vegetables like carrots and zucchini. And I was like, what is going on here? Well, it's probably the seeds, the patents on the GMO seeds. I didn't dig down that, but just when you mentioned it, I thought I had to share. And then the other thing is with glyphosate, and if those aren't, of you listening, maybe you're familiar, maybe you're not. But to pick up on what you were saying, Lance, is that glyphosate is this Roundup, right? And it's literally sprayed on the crops to get rid of the insects. And how it's doing that is that it's made to destroy the insect's gut. Like it is made to explode their gut. So what is it doing to us? And again, that's just a little tidbit there to share with the audience of how important it is, to figure out what you're really ingesting, what you're really eating.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously organic is the cleanest way. Yeah. We know that whole thing's been corrupted too in different ways, but if you can talk to your farmer, local farmers markets, if you yourself are growing, don't spray. There's no need to, literally no need to.
Right. Figure out the ways that they used to do it ancestrally.
Yes, exactly. There's essential oils you can spray on plants. There's all sorts of different things, weed management. It's not complicated stuff.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to take you off your train of thought there with pine needles and pine needle extract and pine cones.
Yeah.
But so could you speak to the benefits a little bit of health-wise? You did say that about the blood flow. What else do we need to know about pine needle extract specifically, since that's what I keep hearing so much about?
Yeah. So immune system, it's going to help boost the immune system. The indigenous have used it. They used it in the winters, especially because it boosts the immune system. There's vitamin C in there as well. It'll help healthy blood flow. It helps brain health because of the blood flow, but also because of the shikimic acid helps the body to create more myelin sheath or myelin. And the myelin sheath is like the insulation that wraps around the nerves. So this helps the gut, it helps the brain, it helps the heart, it helps everything, because we're electrical at the core. We operate on electricity, the whole body does, and other things, quantum principles as well, quantum mechanical principles, light, all sorts of things, but just on a physical level, electricity. And so we need myelin sheath. We need that insulation to wrap around the wires, so to speak, so that electricity can flow. If you think about wires in a building, if there's no insulation, what's going to happen? It's going to short circuit, it can blow up, it can do all sorts of things. It's not going to move that electricity. Same thing in the brain, the body, all of that. So myelin sheath, very important. The shikimic acid helps to produce or like repair that and helps to maintain a good myelin sheath. And cardiovascular health too, because of the same reasons. Unsticking the blood, when blood flows better, everything works better.
Mm-hmm. True. Wow. Yeah, so much to say and unpack there, but pine needle extract is something that people are using, not just for having had the jibbity jab. Struggling for a word to use there. Probably doesn't matter at this point. Another interesting product that you had, and something I wasn't really familiar with, was the mushroom product. What is it? The Agarikon?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
You can pronounce like that. Agarikon is another way. Agarikon.
Okay, Agarikon. I wasn't familiar, so I love it when I have to do a little research and figure out what this is all about. But I mean, we know mushrooms have a lot of health benefits. Lion's mane. I mean, I personally had a great experience with lion's mane. But what can you tell us about this mushroom that maybe people don't know?
So how I learned about this was from, one of the world's foremost experts on mushrooms and just health and wellness in general. And most people listening have heard of him, or many people have. Paul Stamets. He's a mycologist, very, very knowledgeable on mushrooms, and he's put out a lot of information. But several years ago, he was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about Agarikon. So after 9/11, the Department of Defense, they did a program called Biodefense BioShield with the NIH and NIAID. So it's a military government, study and program. It was open. I'm sure there were covert aspects to it, but it was open. And
intriguing.
Yes, and there was 200,000 different samples submitted and tested in this study. And Paul Stamets from, I think he was in Washington at the time, or his company was there, or Northern Canada, Southern Canada rather. He submitted a bunch of samples of mushrooms. So there were mushrooms submitted, pharmaceuticals, vitamins, and herbs, all sorts of different things. They were looking at everything because they were trying to find counter agents or antidotes to biological weapons. They weren't saying the word biological weapons, but they were looking at antidotes to anthrax. That's what the whole thing was. MRSA, SARS, those sorts of...
Wow. Deep stuff.
Yeah.
So they researched this mushroom to help.
Yes. And so what happened was the samples were submitted. Agarikon was like literally off the charts for its antiviral, antibacterial activity, way above and beyond everything else, different strains of it. But the Agarikon that's most commonly known as the Fomitopsis officinalis, or they've changed it to Lyricifomus officinalis, and that is Agarikon. And those strains, or that strain, was just super potent. And so he called his contact, and this is all on the Joe Rogan podcast, so this is all out there. He called his contact at the government and was like, hey, because he got the papers back. And he said, hey, this is awesome. Like, this is crazy good. This amazing. And the guy was like, it's like, you were not supposed to get those. How did you get those?
Oops. It was an oopsie.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Divine intervention for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't going to even be told about Agarikon. Definitely not. They would have swept that under the rug because of how strong it was. No way we would have learned about that. He was like, all right, well, whatever. And then a day or two later, his compound, he wasn't there, but he had employees there, and that got swarmed and hovered by a Black Hawk helicopter. So at the time, they didn't quite know, like, maybe who he was or what he was doing. Like, in his words, he was saying, like, he felt they were just, like, checking out, like, you might have an antidote to anthrax and all these different biological weapons, so we need to know who you are and, like,
everything about you
what
and
are
what
you
you're
doing?
Yeah.
So that happened, and then it just he called them again, like, got told, well, sometimes miscommunication happens. You weren't supposed to get it. We didn't intend to swarm you. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then they just moved forward, and so he submitted some patents on a couple of the compounds in there as antivirals. But Agarikon in general is super antiviral, antibacterial. It's very potent against a strain of tuberculosis. There's a Tuberculosis Institute in Chicago that's got a study on this.
Wow.
The indigenous have long used this as spiritual protection. Like, they really believed it helped protect them in the afterlife from demons or negative entities or whatever. Regardless of that, the indigenous really prized this for the physical and the spiritual properties of this mushroom.
Amazing. Wow. Amazing stuff. I feel like we could have a whole other conversation. We might have to do that because as I just checked the time, it's like time stood still during this conversation. You have so much, you're a wealth of information. You have so many great stories to share. So I do hope you'll come back.
Absolutely,
for another
Karen.
episode. We can talk about hemp oil. That's a whole other part of your company. So for those listening and want to learn more from Lance, make sure you go check out Ascent Nutrition. And also Nature's Garden, because we'll be getting some products from there too. So for everyone, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Carrie.
And just for everyone listening, I just want to remind you, stay healthy so you can stay happy, and I'll see you on the next one. Psst, can you do me a favor? Text the link to this episode to a friend who you know needs to hear this. By doing so, you are helping me with my mission to open minds to all the holistic health solutions that are available to us all. We hope you'll support our small business and shop ngvitamins.com for all your supplement needs. Oh, and don't forget to follow, hit the bell on your platform of choice so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this show, please consider sharing your review on iTunes. Until next time.